Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled Planet X and Megathrust Earthquakes Along the West Coast of the USA. Now, the Earth has experienced large earthquakes from time to time. One of these occurred in Alaska in 1964 and is referred to as the Great Alaska Earthquake. This was an earthquake with a magnitude of 9.2. This earthquake caused extreme damage to buildings due to ground movement, liquefaction, and earthquake-induced tsunamis. These large earthquakes are prone to happen in regions on Earth where the Earth is extensively fractured. The fracturing probably occurred as a result of a huge cataclysmic event that the Earth went through in the past. The fractures in the Earth's crust are called fault lines, and the largest ones are called tectonic plate boundaries. And we can see the large fractures here in the Earth's crust on this map. And these are called tectonic plate boundaries. The arrows here indicate the direction of the forces that the different plates place on each other. Now, in addition to these major fractures, the Earth also has minor fractures within the continental plates, which are called intraplate fault lines. Earthquakes can happen at any fault line, but the majority of the earthquakes happen at plate boundary fault lines. The main reason for this is that the different layers of rock are able to move with respect to each other at these fault lines. And these are the different types of movements that you get at fault lines. If we have two plates on either side moving apart, you may get a sideways slip like this, where one moves up and the other one moves down. And if they're moving together instead of moving apart, we may get this, where again one moves up, the other one moves down. And then you get the strike slip fault, where the plates are just moving past each other, and they will tend to slip so that one moves with respect to the other. Now, when there are earthquakes, often what we get is liquefaction. And this occurs if soils are fine-grained and waterlogged. Then an earthquake can lead to this process called liquefaction. This allows cars and even buildings to just sink into the ground, as we see here. And the other thing that can happen is if the earthquake occurs on the ocean floor or off the coast, then it may induce a tsunami, and this is the type of thing that then happens. It's extremely destructive to coastlines, cities by the coast. Now, the Earth contains vast amounts of molten rock, which we call magma, and this magma has been able to cut channels inside the crust and upper mantle through which it is able to flow. Some of these channels go right up to the Earth's surface and may follow weak regions in the Earth's crust or along fault lines. The points where these channels are able to reach the surface are where volcanoes are found. But there are also higher points and chambers in this network of lava channels that are sealed from the surface. Now, the movement of magma in the channels puts pressure on the fault zones, and when these slip, they cause the magma to flow away from the area of the earthquake. Thus, the magma flows rapidly along the channels and may explode into upward trending parts of the channels that are sealed off. And when this happens, they can cause a huge earthquake. And this is illustrated here. Magma moves along these chambers, and where there are ways all the way up to the surface, you'll get volcanoes. But sometimes there's no way right up to the surface. There's just some sealed chambers, and as the magma explodes into these chambers, they induce earthquakes in the fault lines close to these chambers. So in this way, volcanic activity is actually a sign that magma is moving. And thus it may only be a matter of time before the magma flows into a sealed chamber. And so the fact that we have so many volcanoes going off at the moment means that we are having magma flowing along these channels, and they are moving all the way down from the Earth's outer core, which is liquid, all the way up these channels and trying to find a way to the surface as the magma in the inner core expands and heats up. And this then causes this magma to flow in, and the fact that we have these volcanic eruptions in places like Hawaii, which does not seem to be ending, means that this is likely to occur. We're likely to have magma flowing and exploding into sealed chambers, and thus causing huge earthquakes along neighboring fault lines. And we do know that the Earth is under pressure because of the presence of the stellar cores, and there are several of them that have made Earth their host. They are absorbing energy from the Earth, and here we see one of them. This one was captured by GFP in late March of 2018, and this object was seen to be stationary in the sky for quite some time, and this is only possible if it is an object that has made a connection with the Earth, like the stellar cores that make connection with the Sun do. And once they make this connection, it's a matter connection, they are then able to rotate with the Earth. You may look at article 243 entitled Earth hosting at least 3 Planet X system objects for more details on that. So at the moment, the Earth is in upheaval because of the Planet X system of stellar cores, which are affecting the Earth. Now, these objects are causing the Earth to heat up from the core, so the magma layer inside the Earth is heating up and expanding and seeking outlets to the surface. And you may look at article 258 entitled Planet X and Increased Volcanic Activity for more details on that. Now, the fact that the Hawaiian volcanic eruption is not abating but getting worse is an indication that magma is on the move underground. And this is a sign that a large earthquake may result, therefore, in adjacent regions. So this is lava flowing from the Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. And the lava is flowing faster and faster, indicating that it is hotter and hotter and coming from deeper and deeper from within the Earth. So this indicates that indeed the magma inside the Earth is heating up and expanding, and therefore seeking ways to reach the surface. And obviously it has found a way at this Hawaiian volcano. Now, there are several regions along the Earth's fault zones that are capable of producing very large earthquakes. These regions are called Megathrust earthquake zones. And one such zone is the Cascadia subduction zone. This area runs from Vancouver Island to Northern California and is 1,000 kilometers or 620 miles long. And we see a map of it here. So the Earth's crust is more fractured in this region than in other regions, than even is usual in most fault zones. And another concerning factor about earthquakes in this region is that they seem to have the potential to also trigger earthquakes along the adjacent San Andreas fault line, which we see here. And this fault line runs through California, as you can see, and is about 1,300 kilometers in length, or 800 miles in length. Now, there seems to be some evidence that earthquakes generated by the Cascadia subduction zone also triggered earthquakes along the San Andreas fault in the last 3,000 years. However, the San Francisco earthquake of 1906 seems to have been an exception. And so Here we see the San Andreas also. We could get a large earthquake along here as well. It could be induced from the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake if one occurs there. And it is, however, possible that we will just get an earthquake here by itself. Now, earthquakes can also be induced as a result of electrical activity in the Earth's ionosphere. In this case, discharges within the Earth cause rock to fracture and seismic waves to flow from the fracture point. And here's an illustration of that. This is actually a discharge or underground lightning, which occurs and may lead to the fracturing of the Earth at a certain point, and thus the creation of seismic waves or earthquakes emanating from that point. Now, since the stellar cores captured by the Earth are drawing more and more energy from the Earth, all of Earth's layers are increasing in energy or heating up. The ionosphere is no exception. As the energy in the ionosphere increases, so does the possibility of discharges in the atmosphere and in the Earth's layers underground, which may then result in earthquakes. And you may look at Article 240 entitled Planet X System Effect on radioactive decay rate and heating of planets. And this is also illustrated here, how the stellar cores, it draws energy from the Earth. More and more energy will come from the Earth's core and will leave the Earth's core and go through all of the Earth's layers, thus heating up every single layer. This leads to the magma inside the outer core of the Earth to heat up and expand, and thus will tend to go through any cracks it can find and try and find its way to the surface. And this will lead to more earthquakes, but it will lead to volcanic eruptions as well. Now, the stellar cores may also directly induce earthquakes through their gravitational influence, which, although small, is still there. So it ends up having a tidal force, or a force which is tidal in nature. And a tidal force is actually a differential gravitational force, in that it's very strong underneath the object but very weak everywhere else. But this type of gravitational force can induce fault lines to slip directly, and it may also induce the magma inside the Earth to move upwards towards the object and explode into these chambers, and thus create earthquakes in fractures that are in the region of that chamber. And here we see one of the stellar cores. This is the one that's being hosted, one of the ones that's being hosted by the sun. As you can see, they make matter connections with the sun. They're drawing energy from the sun. They are destroying the sun through this process. They are doing the same thing to the planets of the solar system by drawing energy. They're reducing the gravity. They then cause these the objects to expand in size. So as the stellar cores being hosted by the Earth draw more energy from the Earth, their gravitational influence will also increase, and thus all the effects that may lead to large earthquakes will also increase. As the Earth's energy decreases due to the presence of the stellar cores, the Earth expands, which creates fissuring and sinkholes in the Earth. This process not only opens new channels for magma to flow, it also increases fractures and may create cave-ins underground, which will then also result in earthquakes. In addition, since new objects seem to be continuously arriving at the sun, it is likely that the number of objects arriving near the Earth is also increasing, which will then further increase the likelihood of a cataclysmic event such as the occurrence of a very large or megathrust earthquake. In conclusion, the presence of several Planet X objects near the Earth and being hosted by the Earth, or in other words, absorbing energy from the Earth, makes it very likely that very large or megathrust earthquakes will occur. Since these seem to be related to the flow of magma, and since the Hawaiian eruption is not showing signs of abating, it also seems very likely that a very large earthquake will occur along the western coast of the United States in the very near future. And this is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.